Hi everyone. I'm back today with conversation around what a true CFO support looks like. I get asked this question a lot from anyone that's looking for a CFO in their business. They want to know, why does a business need a CFO? And I would say the role of the CFO in a business, or why would a business need it, is because they want to start to plan proactively the future of their business. Like, they're tired of being reactive, of just dealing with problems. They feel like they have no control over what's going on financially in their company, and they're just ready to take the reins and start to take control over what's going to happen going forward. And so this starts with really good financial planning and projections around what could be possible for the company, and not just like what we've been able to achieve or done before, but really like, what is our going forward plan? What can we expect to hit as a goal? And what are some possibilities and ideas or new ways that we could serve our clients or customers to make sure that they want to grow with us and that they want to purchase more from us? And what are some services or needs that we see are necessary to meet those buyer needs and problems, solve those problems? So this is where creativeness comes in from a CFO, and like, what's possible? What have we done? How could we move forward? And what are some opportunities we haven't thought about for our business? And why does a business need a CFO? Is because nobody is managing this aspect of it. Everybody's busy and running around doing all the things, but they're not looking at, what do we need to do to grow? And those intentional conversations open up a series of opportunities that need to be explored. And then we need to analyze some of that to make sure they're feasible, they're viable, that we have the team we need to support it. And if we don't, that we have a hiring plan in place to have the team necessary to be able to support that growth. The next question I normally get from business owners is like, when do I need a CFO? And the answer really varies. It depends, because there's CFOs that work with startups who just got funded, or maybe are just getting started, all the way to established businesses. Every Fortune 500 company has a CFO. So it ranges, because it depends on the level of support that you're looking for. But I think every business can benefit from forward planning, which is what a CFO does for a business, and projections, and creating a strategic financial plan and direction. But starting at six figures, we see that it works best to have a one-time project or engagement where we have a clear deliverable for the client that is seeking some support. They want some access to strategy, but maybe don't have the budget to be able to have a CFO and retainer yet. But this is the start where you get to get a glance into how decisions can be made based on data instead of just gut instinct. And maybe you're feeling a little lost and you want some guidance in the direction. What financial clarity does for you is provide you that guidance and direction. So it's important that you consider bringing in a CFO earlier on in your business, but definitely do not pay anything that you can't afford to spend. And a good CFO will tell you that. They will not just sell you on anything. They'll just evaluate whether or not this is feasible. And this is the kind of partnership you want to have with a CFO. At around 10, 20 employees, things start to get complicated, especially if you don't have like the right compensation structures, or if you've done things differently every time you hire someone, and you kind of hush it together. And now it's like, what have I done? I'm not sure. Like, can I change it? Like, it's harder because now you have an organization and a company, and you build a certain culture and expectations. Whether they're right or wrong doesn't matter. You have now built a living organism with people in it that have opinions, and now you have to manage to keep everyone happy so that everybody's working to make the company profitable. And this is where I see a lot of the complexity around financial management and the cookie cutter advice that's out there around, do profit first, or do this or do that, does not really apply anymore, or doesn't work as effectively, I'll say. That is great framework to start with when you're starting out your business and you have a few people. But once you get to 10, 20 employees or people in your company, the complexity just quadruples. And so you have so many moving pieces, because one thing is dependent on another. And then what you need is a financial process where you're evaluating decision making from all aspects of the problem, or the issue that you're trying to solve. So it's important that you consider that there's additional vectors that are connected to the decision making when a business is that big and continues to grow beyond that. Obviously, any business that are larger than that will need a CFO because they will ask very complex questions like, can I afford to hire? Should I bring 3 more people? Should I buy a building? Like things that are bigger. Should I acquire another business? Should we develop a new revenue stream? And this requires some developing of a financial plan in order to get some clarity on what that could be, what's possible. Maybe it's a pricing strategy. We need to evaluate how you're doing pricing, again, compensation structure, or it's just other problems with, hiring and retention that we need to look at. Maybe is customer client retention or acquisition that we need to evaluate. And all of this is interconnected. And we can see from your profit and loss statement what some of the issues or gaps might be on how you're allocating funding to those areas when you bring a CFO into the mix, even if it's just a fractional CFO, which is, part-time CFO helping your business, you would see tremendous value and growth. Ultimately, you should see, top line, meaning revenue growth, as well as bottom line growth, profit increase when you bring a CFO. That is how we deliver value, by the way, to companies. So if your CFO is not delivering you those results, unless there's circumstances outside their control, then you might want to consider working with someone who can help you make those goals a reality. Now, a lot of times people get really confused about the role of a CFO in a company because they never work with one. They don't really know what we do. And so I wanted to clarify some of the things that we do for clients that might tell you whether or not you are actually working with a CFO today, or maybe it's not the level of CFO that you need or want in your business. So things that we do for clients is we provide advice and guidance. We are business partners to the CEO where they confide in us things that they can't tell their employees that's going on. Because we're outside of the company, it allows us to have a lot of freedom to be able to know what's going on without having to worry about other internal people discussing that in the company. So we can keep it outside of the company and get a unbiased third-party objective input and fresh approach from an experienced CFO who has been there before or helped businesses in that level surpass, some of their issues. The other thing that good CFOs do is we project and forecast our plan. And so if your CFO is not currently forecasting or projecting your financials, then that is really where a lot of the scenario planning and financial analysis is going to come from. So they need to be running that financial analysis for you. So when you ask a question like, can I afford to hire? Are they doing the hiring plan with projections around compensation, around gross margins, around, what goals, how they're going to achieve them per employee to make sure that the company is profitable and that you have enough margin in your business to be able to afford all the overhead that you have and expenses that come with running the business. Now, the other thing that a CFO does or should be doing for you is help you understand some key insights. So when we're looking at data, we can see trends, we can see what's happening with some patterns in the data, or maybe where we're not allocating enough funding in some areas, which is causing some issues around, lack of growth maybe, or deceleration. So making sure that your CFO is giving you those key takeaways, it's going to be crucial because those are the best conversations I have with clients is when we say, hey, have you noticed this is happening? Or like, we see this, trend. Are you even aware? And half the time they're not because they're busy CEOs running the business like yourself, and they have so many things on their priority list. And sometimes looking at the financials to understand them and have the right trends is not on their list of things to do for the day. So that's where a CFO that focuses on that and, doing that as their day job can really come in handy. The other piece that a CFO does for a business is identify growth opportunities and potential risks. So on the growth opportunity side, we're looking at what is possible, what services could we deliver, how can we transform the current services we have. And this is all exploratory, and it's before we make a decision, which is a really key differentiation between just winging it or using your gut to do it and then waiting to see what happens. So we are mapping out what could happen with some educational guesses or estimations in the conversation that we have with you, and making sure that we know, okay, what are the possibilities? How would those growth opportunities get supported or funded? How will our team be able to deliver on that? Or if we don't have the team, do we need to hire more people? This is where we start to connect the dots for you, which a lot of times business owners are just doing things and not thinking, how does this connect to my overall strategy, or how am I thinking about growth in the right way for my company? And then what happens is they unintentionally develop additional potential risks that were not identified during this discovery or exploratory process with your CFO. When we're doing that opportunity seeking, we're also evaluating, is there any risk we're adding? And if so, what is it? And can we prevent it or minimize it? That is the job of a good CFO, is to prevent and minimize risk so that we are in a good financial standing at all times. Okay, so next, what we do as CFOs is we interpret the data. So just like we do key takeaways and analyze trends, we're also seeing like what is the data telling us. Maybe there's a lack of wages being paid out, and that means maybe we don't have enough people for the size of business we have, or maybe we're seeing growth constraints because we don't have the capacity to service more. So this is where the data interpretation really comes in to give the CEO, the owner, directionally what they need to be doing or thinking about. And then it pairs really well with what the owner or CEO thinks is the next best move to make. But now we're validating it through data, which is super important to build confidence and clarity when you're making decisions in your company as a CEO. So you'll see that that will really help you drive the right approach going forward. And in helping you define clear goals, we can also measure against them, which is another thing that a CFO does. Is once we've outlined those goals in detail by month, we can measure against that based on what's happening and understand why are we not hitting the goal, or if we're hitting the goal, celebrate with you. And then if we're exceeding the goal, also get excited about the opportunities and see what went right. Like, do that financial analysis to understand what went right. What did we do well? Can we do more of it? Can we double or triple or 10x our efforts in that area? And I think that's where we start to do what is working, more of what's working and less of what's not working. Because I find a lot of businesses are working really hard, but in the wrong things. And that's because they're not looking at their data. So if we find something that works well when we're defining goals and setting expectations, and we start to see our trends on the reality or actual measures are coming in ahead, that's where we want to step in to the step on the gas to power and fuel that up, make that growth accelerate. On the other side, if we're not hitting the goals, we're going to ask questions like, why is that happening? Like, are we lacking the people? Are we lacking the skill set? Are we just not doing enough marketing? What is happening? Or maybe it's our conversion rate that's suffering. And so making sure that you're looking at that is going to be critical. And this kind of leads me to what CFOs do best, which is financial strategy. So when we're thinking about growth and where we're going, we also want to put a lens of the business industry and knowledge that aligns with the financial strategy we're trying to achieve. And the financial strategy is going to be a place where we think about what could be the next best step, where do we see ourselves in a year, and map out the action steps that are necessary that tie to the strategy. So let's say the strategy is we want to grow by 20% top line revenue. We want to increase profitability by 5%. How are we going to do that? Breaking that down is the financial strategy. So it's not enough to just say, I'm going to grow, I'm going to make $5 million. You want to make sure that you understand how that's going to be possible. We are going to promote these 3 new different ways and see what works well so we could do more of that. We're going to go ask for referrals. We're going to do, paid ads, and we're going to hire one more person in the team to make sure we can service that growth as well. And we're going to probably have to rent another office in order to be able to have them working from there, or we might choose to let them work remote. So these are the kind of conversations we want to marry the action to the strategy in order for the strategy to be achievable and attainable in our business. It's not enough to just say, I want to grow, or I want to grow by 20%. You have to define the how. And the how is the most important piece of the work that we do for our clients, because the how answers what's the next best step we need to take in order to make that a reality. Okay. And then the other piece I see often where CFOs are maybe not the right CFO for the company, and this happened to a client of mine that decided to move on to another CFO, and we were doing a good job, but we were on the pricier side because of the experience and knowledge we had on business and business growth. And then they went to CFO who did just the standard advice, right? They did the reporting, they sent them reports, they had conversations, but they didn't really understand the business or had business knowledge. And they didn't get up to speed with what was happening in the business and how it functions and how the owners make decisions and what was going on in the business. And so they weren't providing aligned advice. And what I mean by aligned advice is like the advice they were given just wasn't hitting the mark with the owners because they did not understand the business. They didn't understand the industry and they fell short, right? So instead of learning about the industry and getting up to speed and asking questions of the owners, this other CFO was just giving them that cookie cutter advice, which was not making a difference or not moving the needle in the business at all. And so, after a while, they came back to us for support because they felt that we were giving them better business advice from a CFO lens and perspective, which is what you want to have in your CFOs. You want to make sure that they know business and business growth in that industry you're in or can get up to speed on it to make sure you get better advice overall. Okay, so we want to wrap up with what a true CFO does and the support that you'll be getting, which is what we outlined today on why does a business need a CFO? It's because we want to get proactive about managing our finances. When does a business need a CFO? When the complexity has exceeded your own skill set as an owner to manage it on your own. So, or you maybe just don't have the time to do it anymore and you want to outsource and delegate it out. So that's a good time to also consider outsourcing. And also when you can afford it, like it has to fit in your budget. And a good CFO will tell you whether or not that works in your budget and will more than make up for their own investment in them by returning you more growth and more profit in your business. Also, what is the role of a CFO? I went through that, the business partnership, the data insights, the analysis, the understanding and interpreting the actions that need to be taken, defining clear goals, defining the financial strategy for the company, and then making sure they're providing aligned business advice to the business owner, and then providing that forecasting and projection going forward. Either it is your profit and loss or cash flow, doesn't matter. All the things forward looking, proactive, and making sure you have that clarity to be able to move forward with confidence. That is the role of a CFO. So if that's not what you're getting today, make sure you give us a call. You can find more information on our website at wealthworthwithin.com. I have an outline of all the types of support that a CFO does for a company and how we might be able to help you. Make sure you book a call at Let's Get Started. And it's a free consultation to understand your needs and how we might be able to support you. And make sure you sign up for our newsletter. If you're not ready to hire a CFO, we put a lot of educational free content out there to make business owners get better with their business finances. And last but not least, follow us on social media at Wealth Within. Let me know you heard this episode and what your takeaways were and how you're taking action on this advice and this information around what a CFO should be doing. And if your CFO is not doing this today, make sure you consider making a change and holding them accountable to this kind of scope of work, because this is truly the function of a CFO in a company and what I would like to see every CFO be able to do for their clients to help them move forward. So thank you for being here today. Until next time.